Now back to the situation at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where reports over the weekend have raised further concerns about the complex where 2 children died in 2017 after being treated in a ward later closed due to infections linked to the water supply. After Glasgow Health Board was put into special measures, it's now been reported that a mother believes her child's current illness could be linked, and a whistleblower claims to have identified a further 10 cases. On top of that, it's emerged that a critical health and safety executive report criticised staff training and equipment last November. Well, joining us now in the studio is the National Clinical Director, Professor Jason Leitch. Good morning to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. Obviously, details are emerging daily. What is particularly worrying is this Health and Safety Executive report from November 2018. It listed a raft of problems of how staff were trained and equipped to deal with infectious diseases. We heard Professor Hugh Pennington on earlier saying that it does really point to something wrong in the culture. Would you agree, the culture of the hospital?
Well, the most important thing to say, first of all, is that the patients and families who this hospital serve are the most important people in this whole story and equation. And there are 400 families under the care of the blood cancer unit today. Some of them inpatients, some of them outpatients, some of them receiving follow-up care. And they are the most important people to reassure and ensure that the hospital is safe for them. The HSE report is a slightly different tangent. It was into infectious diseases units, not the blood cancer unit. So that's where we treat very severe infections. For the high end would be Ebola or tuberculosis. And this HSE report is part of the infrastructure for quality control inside the health system, and it found failings.
And if it found failings, though, that is the point, though. Does that not point to something wrong in the culture of the hospital, even though it might have not have been that particular department?
I think it points to failings that the Health Board have acknowledged. There is an action plan that goes along with that HSE report about training for equipment, about vaccinations for TB, and those have been put in place following that improvement notice from the HSE. I'm reassured that the HSE were able to go in, were given complete and open access to the data and to the unit, and then Greater Glasgow Health Board responded appropriately. Now, would I rather that wasn't required in the first place? Of course I would. But the response has been appropriate. But it's important that the public understand that that is for the infectious diseases units, not infection control across the whole hospital.
I understand. Jeane Freeman didn't see that report. Did you see that report?
No, I've now seen it.
Well, should you have seen it?
Well, yesterday I spoke to Healthcare Improvement Scotland, who are our regulator and quality organisation for the country, and I asked them to check the relationships and the communication directions with the Health and Safety Executive, and they're doing that today. I don't think I should have seen it. I think Healthcare Improvement Scotland should have seen it, and the Health Board should have seen it and responded to it, and that's what's happened.
Is there a wider communication problem here?
Well, there are 18 health boards who treat patients. One of them, Greater Glasgow and Clyde, has 5 big hospitals, has 1.5 million patients it's responsible for. So we have to have layers of control and management. And one of those layers is that the Health Board manage that kind of report. Now, the Cabinet Secretary yesterday asked us to look into how those HSE reports are dealt with, and we'll be doing that this week.
As I say, that details are emerging, and we had this case which was highlighted in the paper yesterday. Jeane Freeman was talking to the BBC yesterday saying she was working through a lot of the detail, but she didn't know how many cases there were. Do you know?
I know there are infections throughout our National Health Service. I know that the common infections across the National Health Service continue to fall. So C. difficile, 3 or 4 years ago, you and I would have been talking about big infection outbreaks across Scotland for MRSA and C. difficile. They are continuing to fall by 17.5% and 7% in the last 4 years, even once we reach low levels. I know there are still rare and unusual infections happening in the health service, and it's my job, my drive, and all of the clinical team's drive to get that down. If people are concerned, like that mum yesterday. The first point of call is their clinical team. They have oncologists, paediatricians, nurses who are really keen to speak to these people and help them as much as they can.
Do you know how many cases there are which are pertinent to this particular issue, though, that we're talking about?
Well, it depends what you mean by pertinent issues. So we know the water is now safe in this hospital. The hospital today is safe. Healthcare is a risk organisation. We cannot completely remove the risk, particularly to this group of really, really vulnerable children who are very sick, some of whom have very immature immune systems, some of whom we are treating for cancer, and one of the things we have to do is reduce their immune system. All the more reason, of course, for them to be in an entirely safe environment. So those cases are the most important. And that's why we've embedded Craig White, who works in my directorate in the government, we've embedded him inside the Health Board to link to these families and the patients themselves to make sure all the questions that they have are answered. And I'm now confident that is happening.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in this morning. That's Professor Jason Leitch, their National Clinical Director.